There we go. Perfect. So good afternoon, everybody. It is, as I said, it is 1 p.m. I can confirm we do indeed have quorum. Currently absent from the committee is Councillor Tozo, Jane Bailey, Kathy Burrowick, Jacqueline Collier, and Ian Clark. I also want to take a quick moment to say welcome to Adrian Tangela, who has joined the committee as the youth representative. So with that out of the way, I will quickly turn first to the election. Oh, there's Councillor Tozo, so I can quickly put him in as a yes there. I will turn first for the election of officers. So could I have a volunteer or a nomination for the position of chair, please? Councillor Ridge as chair, perfect. Do I have a mover for Councillor Ridge being chair? You can raise your virtual hand in Zoom as well, please. Moved by Nikki, seconded by Councillor Tozo. All right. So let me put that in here. And I'll do the call as well for vice chair. Do I have a nomination for vice chair? River, of course. Do I have any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, can I have a mover for River to be chair, vice chair? Moved by Councillor Tozo. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Hanny, and then all those in favor of Councillor Ridge being chair and River being vice chair. All that, just praise virtual hands. Perfect. And with all that out of the way, I'm very happy to turn it over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Can everybody hear me okay? We'll just start with that. Very good. Thank you. This is wasn't planning for this to be the first meeting that I chair today, but that's fine. So can I get an approval of the agenda, please? Oh, sorry, we're going to call the meeting to order at 1:02 p.m. And now can I please get a Councillor Tozo, thank you. And do we have a second? Yes, Mrs. Collier, very good, thank you. All those in favor? Please raise your digital hands or your hands. Okay, looks like, yep, we have approval. Very good. Moving on. Can I have confirmation of the minutes, please, from our last meeting? Can I have a mover for that, please? River, thank you. And a seconder, I saw Tara's hand. Very good. All those in favor? Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Moving on to our delegations. We have Mr. Wild from downtown Kingston here to speak about the Welcoming Streets initiative.
Through you, Mr. Chair, through the addendum that was passed with the passing up, it has been updated to Mary Jo Courier and Julie Lambert. And I just want to remind all the delegations that they have 5 minutes to speak, and then members of the committee have 2 questions each. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Great. Okay. I'm Mary Jo Courier, the Executive Director of Downtown Kingston Business Improvement Area, and Julie Lambert will be with me and be introducing herself. You could do it right now, actually, Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie Lambert.
Next slide, please. So today we're going to talk about Welcoming Streets, which is a program that the city had, along with the Ontario Homeless Prevention Program, has funded for the last 6 months. This is sort of our 6-month check-in, and also looking for funding beyond next July. This is a partnership between Downtown Kingston and AMHS KFLA, and we'll be talking today about the mission, vision, and purpose of the program, as well as some of the goals the team, some of the stats that we've gathered over the last 6 months, and then wrapping it up with client stories. Next slide, please. Welcoming Streets' mission is to build positive and respectful relationships with downtown business owners, residents, and businesses, as well as individuals experiencing homelessness or facing mental health and addiction challenges. Next slide. Welcoming Streets' vision is to foster a compassionate, inclusive, and supportive environment for everyone in the downtown Kingston community. And Welcoming Streets' purpose. Next slide. It's twofold, our purposes. One is engaging with individuals who may be experiencing homelessness, addiction, or mental health difficulties in a respectful manner and assisting them in accessing the resources and support they may need. And number two is supporting our property and business owners as well as their staff and employees and customers to cultivate a safe, welcoming, and supportive community that considers the complex needs of those involved. Next slide, please. Welcoming Streets goals. We have 6 goals. I'll go over them briefly. Dedicated focus is focus on the downtown core of Kingston to address concerns related to homelessness, mental health, and or substance abuse use disorders as identified by business owners and the public. We are a hub, as most downtowns are, for street involvement and mental health and addictions challenges and homelessness. Relationship building is number 2. Cultivating an authentic, proactive, and positive relationship with businesses, residents, visitors, and social service partners within the downtown core. Trust and rapport, building trust and establishing a positive rapport with individuals experiencing homelessness, mental health, and or addictions, and by developing genuine connections outside of crisis situations. Business support, enhancing the capabilities of local businesses to address concerns related to people who are street involved effectively, fostering empathy and understanding and providing appropriate support where needed. Non-police response, trying to interject and respond to situations in the downtown core that may not necessarily require police intervention, providing alternative approaches to addressing issues related to homelessness, mental health, and or addictions. Collaboration with services, collaborating closely with the existing service support individuals with existing services, supporting individuals with complex needs, interacting with street-involved individuals, adopting a person-centered and community-based approach, and facilitating connections with relevant social service agencies and response teams. Next slide, please. We normally have 2 people out on the street. We just lost one of our Welcoming Street stewards, so we're in the process of hiring another 1.5. And so we have Haley out on the street, who mainly bases her days around the caseload that she has, which focuses mainly in the downtown core. The people that call the downtown core their home during the day and sometimes during the evening. But she also does rounds as well. Next slide, please. And these are some interesting stats. I'll just pull some of the main ones. So the big one is total number of contacts made in the 6 months.
30 seconds for the delegation. Thank you.
Oh no, I've got so much more to tell you. Okay, I really want you to hear client stories. Darn it. Okay. Diversion, so I'll point out a couple of quick ones here. Diversion from police bylaw and hospital intervention with a total of 35 instances. We've housed 5 people in the last 6 months, which is very, very high number for that period of time. Uniquely identified individuals served as 80, so that illustrates how many individuals are in the downtown core regularly. And then referral to service is 14, which again is a pretty big accomplishment based on people building proactive relationships before they have to deal with somebody in a less.
And that's 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Okay, now turning to questions for the delegation. Jackie Collier, you have your questions. Go for it.
Thank you so much. Mary Jo, thank you for putting that together. I was really interested in that slide as well, the total numbers and then how it breaks down with police involvement and different involvement. Thank you for submitting that. I know that you had more that you wanted to speak to. So I guess my question would be, what more would you want to tell us? Or, is there a couple stories that you would like to share? Can you share those, please?
Yeah, I can share stats with you until the cows come home, but I think more importantly, because I can give those to you in an email, I think more importantly, I would like, if possible, to invite Julie to share some of the client stories that she has collected. And they're on slide 13, 14, and 15, and 16. So however many you want to hear.
Yeah, so I can just touch on some of the work that we've done downtown and some of the beautiful success stories that we've had with clients. We found the outreach workers came in contact with an individual downtown who had a significant wound and did not want to get it treated, go to hospital, get it treated. Some of our, the people we serve are stigmatized at the hospital and it's a long wait for them. So AMHS outreach nurse was worker was able to connect with the outreach nurse, and they were able to provide wound care to this individual and start to build that rapport with them through that, just that basic needs services that we were able to offer and get them connected to street help. And through that, they just start to build some rapport, and we're able to connect them with Lion's Heart, who has a transitional housing program now. So that person was able to get into transitional housing and is doing quite well. Just by that small interaction of, we identified someone that needed wound care. We were able to meet them where they're at and continue to follow that person forward and building that trust. We do a lot of comprehensive work with the individuals downtown. One individual in particular, we were able to get his taxes done, do some supportive counseling with them. They were able to find housing through Ryandale and has initiated, which I think is so beautiful, his reconnection with his children. He's starting to have visits with his children again. And that is one of the, if you have, your family is so important to you, and to be able to rebuild that relationship is just, it just makes the world for people. So that is a great thing we were able to do. And then just some positive engagement as well. A lot of people have had some really negative experiences with this system. We have one individual that's extremely hard to connect with. We've been able to connect with them on a regular basis, slowly rebuilding that. The person was very deterred by the housing system. They were able to get them to reconnect with housing. They were also able to get them to reconnect with their Providence Care dual diagnosis team and get them back in with that team on medication again. Just the success moving forward, just by this little rapport building that we're doing on a daily basis. And then just the holistic supports that we provide individuals. Like if someone doesn't have, we've had individuals with their ID gets stolen. It's a regular thing. Able to get them help to get their ID. We've been able to connect people with our justice system so they can support people going through the court processes. Connect with housing when they've turned that down in the past, and rebuild those relationships. Getting people connected with their family doctor, connected to resources like drop-in centers, the shelter system, and just building those relationships has been great things. And also building the relationships with the downtown businesses as well. Sometimes it's awkward sometimes when you don't know what you're dealing with, and building that trust in that support and knowing that they have Haley or Jason to call when needed. It has really helped, and it's the stigma and everything is really declining. Some people think Mary Jo is their worker downtown. Like, it's such a beautiful thing, and it's seamless, and that's what we want it to be. There should be no barriers. So it's been a great process so far, and really continue to help it grow. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to be able to share more of what you had wanted to. Thank you. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions from Mrs. Collier. Then the next on my list is River. River.
Oh, I was basically going to do the same thing that Jacqueline did, so I'm good.
Okay, thank you very much, River. Okay, next on my list is Adrian. Adrian, do you have any questions for the delegation?
Yes. First off, I just want to thank Mary Jo and Julie for the time that you spent putting this together, sharing this very empowering stories. I think it's excellent to see how far this program's come. And now I'm thinking back to at the start of your presentation, you're discussing, looking for sort of an extension of funding beyond July of next year. I was wondering if you could share what some of the next steps are for the Welcoming Streets initiative, sort of where you envision things going next year and possibly beyond.
If we can secure funding for the program, it first of all allows our workers that we've hired to continue building relationships with the people that they have on the street, which is super important. Even losing our current Welcoming Street steward, I've already heard from a few people like, where is he? And, so he's already made a huge impact in the 6 months that he's been here. To end the program in 6 months would be pretty impactful, I think, for not only for the people that are vulnerable on the streets, but also our businesses, because they are now starting to feel a little bit safer and a little bit less intimidated in situations where they know they don't have to call 911. They have somebody else that can call and walk alongside them while they figure out what to do. And sometimes it is calling 911, but the majority of the time it's not. So I think long-term, if it was blue sky thinking, I'd like to have 2 people out on the street every day from 7 in the morning till, bedtime when everybody's making their homes in the vestibules and stuff. We have, Haley starts pretty early, and I think sometimes she wakes people up. And to be honest with you, I'm out most evenings tucking everybody in and making sure they're tidy. So yeah, that's what I'd love to see, is just a regular crew that are part of our community as the vulnerable people are, and trying to get them. I just have to say one quick thing. She wasn't part of this program, but she's part of another. She's been homeless for 3 years, and she just signed a lease today with her daughter, and her daughter who's just about to have a baby. So those are the kind of success stories where it's like, man, that was all about relationship. It was all about showing up and saying, hey, you want to go for McDonald's? You want to go, she was a little bit more high functioning than some of the people that we have on the street, but really good news story.
Thank you.
Okay, next on my list is Councillor Tozo. Councillor Tozo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Great delegation, great program, and terrific work connecting people, the most vulnerable in our society, with those resources. So great job. My question is about the people who are working with the Welcoming Streets. What's their background? What's their skills? And what kind of training do they have?
So I'll let Julie answer her worker, and then I'll answer for Welcoming Street steward after her.
Sure.
My worker has a degree in behavioral science, and she has 3 years of work experience. She used to do the I have another street outreach program through AHS that she was held a contract position for a year before, so she had a lot of experience in the outreach role before coming in. The individual that we just lost, he came from a background in addiction mental health that was spanned over 20 years. He actually worked for MHS at one point in his career. He also had a background in Correctional Service Canada, which really helped him understand what the other side of a jail cell looks like. And he also had his own, he had a previous addiction that he was very comfortable talking about. He was also a crisis negotiator, and yeah, a couple more things, but highly trained. We were really lucky with these 2 individuals, and looking forward to finding replacements for them as well.
Excellent. Fantastic and great work, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I see, Hanny, you have your hand up. Do you have any questions for the delegation?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Like I said, I'm it's really great to hear is, they have an impact on the streets. It's really great. So my question really is like, how can we get in touch with you for like, say, know on a personal level, like, what opportunities are available and things like that?
Well, I can put something, can I put things in the chat?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is no chat function in this meeting.
Okay, so if you go to member.downtownkingston.ca and look under community support, there's a section there for welcoming streets. It'll tell you all you need, whether you're on the one side, which is a business owner, or somebody who, and side is the wrong word, but the one type of need, which is business owners, visitors, people who live down here, or whether you're supporting a vulnerable individual, that's also got all of that information. So again, it's member.downtownkingston.ca, and it's under community support, welcoming streets.
All right, thank you. I do apologize for my video is not working. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions for the delegation from committee members who have not yet asked? Going once, going twice. All right, thank you very much to the members of this delegation. Moving on in our agenda, Mary Lynn Cousins-Brame from Kingston Frontenac Housing Corporation. The floor is yours for your delegation. Thank you very much. Just as a reminder, you have 5 minutes.
Can everybody hear me? I want to make sure I don't have any technical issues. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Mary Lynn Cousins-Brame. I'm the CEO of Kingston Frontenac Housing Corporation. We're an independent corporation of the city. We were founded in about 2000. If you could go to the next slide, please. Our mandate is to provide housing for low-income households that can live independently. We're governed by the Housing Services Act. Next slide, please. So for KFHC, we've just updated our strategic plan. So again, our priorities are providing and maintaining affordable homes, collaborating with service providers to help meet the needs of our tenants for their well-being and housing stabilization. And the third priority is to invest in people and strengthen our organizational performance and sustainability. Next slide, please. So what does KFHC housing provide? Well, we have a total of 1553 units that we directly own and manage. The majority are rent geared to income, as you can see, and we also have 265 affordable and market units. We also administer for the city 2 programs, the Rent Supplement Program, where we provide a subsidy to private landlords, and a tenant pays a portion, and they have their lease with the private landlord. And the other program is the portable housing benefit, which is providing the housing benefit to the tenant who can rent wherever they choose. And we administer that program. So we're dealing with over 2,000 units of RGI affordable and market housing in our community. Next slide. One of the things that we're proud of at KFHC, we're the biggest developer of affordable housing. Since 2011, we've done 9 developments with 190 units. And we're on to our 10th with the partnership with the City of Kingston at 1316 Princess Street. We have 92 units, which is on budget and on schedule and will be opened in the fall of 2024. And we have future developments in the queue, hopefully just waiting for funding and support for phase 2 at Hillendale, and also looking at the Rideau Heights revitalization. Next slide, please. So you wonder where we fit in the housing continuum. Well, we're towards the end of the housing continuum, community housing. As you can see, to the left, we've got homelessness, emergency shelters, transitional housing, supportive housing, and then you have community housing or social housing. And this is not a linear approach because often people will cycle through this housing continuum. Next slide. Currently, as everyone knows, we're in a housing crisis. For community housing, it is about affordability, and that's our mandate. And as you know, this is a time when housing crisis, the rents are extremely high, and there is a need to have affordable rents. But we also know we have the homeless issue, domestic violence, victims of human trafficking, and there is such a need in our community for homelessness shelters, emergency shelters, and definitely for transitional and supportive housing. Next slide, please. For KFHC, we are not a social service. We provide, as I mentioned before, our mandate is affordable rent. We do, through the support of the city, we do have 2 housing support staff for over 1,500 units and for 4,000 tenants. This is not to provide mental health or addiction support. This is to provide housing stabilization, make referrals, case management. We're seeing that there is such a gap in services for our tenants around addictions, mental health, health and medical, aging in place, life skills, financial literacy, and just sometimes navigating the systems. Next slide, please.
30 seconds remaining. Thank you.
So we have many challenges, and maybe if you could go to the last slide, I have some recommendations. If you can just flip through. So housing alone is not a solution. We've seen that, housing people from the streets. It does not work. KFHC, we have infrastructure. We have buildings that could assist in the development of a housing continuum. We need to move people through the system to open up doors at the end of that housing continuum, which I addressed earlier. We need to partner, and we need to provide more supportive housing. So I'm hoping through partnerships, we can help address the issue in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's 5 minutes. Are there any questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Tara, please go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, I was a little late on my mouse. Mary Lynn, thanks. That's a great presentation. I've seen you present before, and it's very informative. But I was just kind of wondering if community social housing falls within that middle of that continuum. Like, kind of, are you suggesting people move beyond that into other forms of housing?
That's always the goal. Is social housing was never intended to be permanent housing for life, and that people would be able to move into affordable housing and market. But we know the challenges. We house very vulnerable people, so we know that's not happening. And that's why there's very little movement to house people off the centralized housing list into community housing. There's very little vacancies. And at the same time, we know we want to be able to help people. So how can we support people transitioning from shelters into transitional housing, which is very limited? So what can we do to partner to begin to move people from that end, the left end of the continuum? Because that's what we're talking about, is being able to support people on the left side of the continuum.
I would imagine it's quite challenging if people are into an affordable or rent guaranteed income unit to move on into market or even more affordable rent, because rent guaranteed income is pretty low, right?
That's right. And there's no opportunity in the community to rent that would be affordable for people to move through.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there any other committee members that wish to ask questions to the delegation? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to briefings. We have Director of Housing and Social Services, Ruth Nordegraff, and Martha Beach and Corey Campo from Developmental Services Ontario, who will be speaking to the committee regarding the Developmental Services Ontario Supportive Housing Review Report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ridge. I would like to just quickly introduce both Martha Beach and Corey Compo, who are part of DSO Ontario. I know they will be much better in introducing themselves, but we're actually really excited to share the work that they have done for our community and beyond. And we thought as a committee, it would be helpful to hear from them on some of the work they've done to kind of add this DSO component, which is an important one, to kind of the broader housing and homelessness conversation of this committee. So with no further ado, I will pass it over to Martha and Corey to walk through some of the slides that they've prepared. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Ruth. I really appreciate it. And thanks to the group for having us on board. I have a bit of a script here that I'm going to walk through, and if it sounds like I'm reading it, it's because I am, but I want to get through it so everybody can, I just want to give a bit of a background to the report that was, sent out to everybody else. So we actually are from an agency here in Kingston, Extended Family Kingston, and Extended Family Kingston is actually an MCCS funded agency that primarily supports and provides supports and services to children and adults with developmental disabilities. EAFK is also the host agency for Developmental Services Ontario, which in the Southeast region. And the DSO is the access and application point for all adults seeking supports and services in Ontario. In 2018, MCCSS announced funding for 7 housing navigation positions, which Martha is part of, that would be funded under the umbrella of DSO. Fortunately for us, we're actually to bring Martha on board, who has a wealth of knowledge and information in the housing sector. So we were very fortunate to bring her on, and she actually represents the entire East regions, basically extending from us to the Ottawa region. So, and the housing navigation piece, where they were tasked with developing a housing toolkit, educating families, and developing relationships with housing service managers, community partners, stakeholders to help bring awareness to the lack of supportive housing for individuals with developmental disabilities. Fast forward to 2020, MCCSS introduced a plan for DS reform and document called Journey to Belonging. In short, the vision for Journey to Belonging is that the future of people with developmental disabilities will focus on people and how they can belong in their communities and live meaningful lives. Among many strategies with Journey to Belonging, MCCSS introduced an expansion to housing navigation role. Funding was provided to DSO offices to hire more housing navigators with the continued goal to establish further relationships with service managers, DSO service agencies, and individuals seeking independent housing options. As part of this initiative, funding was also provided to develop capacity and strategies to engage with municipalities and service managers to seek out creative options to support those in need. At this time, Martha and I had already participated in a Hastings County supportive housing environmental scan that was conducted by consultant Sylvia Davies. And once we received a final report, and after some discussions with a few local housing managers, we decided that it would be great to bring Sylvia on to conduct a supportive housing survey for Kingston and Frontenac. Just to be clear, though, this was with a focus on the developmental services population in the Kingston and Frontenac area. So with the slide deck that you guys have here, I will pass it on to Martha from this point on.
Thanks, Corey. If you could advance to the 4th slide called Community Benefits. Perfect, thank you. So I'm really happy to be following Mary Lynn Cousins-Brain because she mentioned partnerships a few times. and supportive housing, and partnerships was a big theme in respondents to this survey. So the survey, like Corey said, was really for the developmental service sector, and it was to help us to find partners to increase opportunities for supportive housing. So it's definitely beneficial to our sector, but also to the community as a whole, because we now have a better understanding of the resources in the community. So for example, we learned through the survey that the 12 permanent supportive housing providers that participated provide 309 units and 342 beds, among other services such as shelter beds. Of the 12 organizations, 11 have wait lists, and those wait lists have waiting times from a few months to over 20 years. 10 of those supportive housing providers had increased their portfolio within the last 5 years, and 11 plan to continue increasing. And, but however, the follow-up question was asked, how many had funding to advance those goals? And 8 of the organizations did not. They don't have funding for either capital or operating funds at this time. Next slide, please. So we've pulled out, you'll see in the report when you read it, we've pulled out a couple of comments from the survey that were particularly impactful. And with this one in mind, one of our goals will have to be to come up with a current definition of what is supportive housing. Especially if we want to be partnering, we need to be able to align with other people's ideas and determination of what is supportive housing and what does that mean. And as you can see, one respondent said, the supportive housing of the past isn't working today. And, one of the things we'll want to discover is what's not working and what do we need to do to get it working again. So as an example, in the past, people with developmental disabilities were housed in large live-in institutions. But in recent decades, there's been a move away from that, and a long-term move away, and towards smaller homes within the community, where people with developmental disabilities aren't expected to live in a prescribed living arrangement. And that smaller home in the community is also consistent with what other respondents to the surveys have said as a best practice. And then today, it's also common belief that support should be flexible. They should support and promote independence, personal growth, and dignity. And everyone should be able to access the services that are available within their community. Next slide, please. And I won't go through all of these. There were quite a few more notes of strengths and opportunities. But of the respondents, 75% believe services could be streamlined in the Frontenac, Kingston Frontenac service area. And they felt there was opportunities around collaboration, service provision, information, and communication. And again, a common goal was, not working in silos, opening it up and looking to see how we can share resources, and information was a big one as well. How can we share the information that we have and not always be developing it individually? And also looking to other communities to see what's working. And some of the examples were what's happening in Belleville in the Hastings County area with the Home for Good and the Altogether housing projects, which are seen as something that we'd like to see in this area as well. Next slide, please. And threats and gaps. As everybody is saying, the housing shortage, the cost of rents, that's a huge threat. It's very difficult to find housing, period, but definitely it's hard to find housing for vulnerable people living in poverty. Staffing challenges, and again, we hear that in so many meetings these days, keeping staff, retaining them. You just hire someone, you just get them trained, and then you might lose them. So that was a big threat as well. And of course, homelessness, mental health, and addictions. And rural housing was also seen as a gap. Next slide, please. So the supportive housing system is, it encompasses like 3 systems: social services, healthcare, and housing. And that can create challenges as you're trying to coordinate and develop housing. And the respondents to our survey represented these 3 systems, but they all express an interest in working together. So 11 again expressed the desire to increase their housing stock and to partner. And although a third of the respondents listed partnerships as one of their strengths, the willingness and the ability of organization to partner is worth noting. Everyone was interested in doing that. It was also noted that the city of Kingston and the county of Frontenac is always open to partnerships and collaboration as well. And so our hope, by bringing permanent and supportive housing providers together through the survey and as part of the recommendations, that will create an environment where collaboration and partnership can grow, and where we can share not only funding and resources, but also knowledge and experience. So next slide, and over to you, Corey.
Well, unmute myself first. So based on the report that Sylvia did for us, where there were many recommendations, and I think in what we have here for that slide that we have for you guys is we kind of put we kind of chose a select few to present to you guys. So I'll read through them really quickly. Provide an environment where partnerships can be pursued to increase the amount of supportive housing available to individuals with developmental disabilities. Work collaboratively with supportive housing providers to determine partnership opportunities with private sector developers and landlords.
30 seconds. Thank you.
Yeah. Identify models and partners that are best suited, that are and have the greatest chances for housing success. Support the development and capacity of building implementation of housing supports and services, and in conjunction with supportive housing providers and Frontenac County, examine the discrepancy in services provided between the city of Kingston and Frontenac County. Continue to streamline and improve ease of navigation of services for the end user. Ultimately, our next steps are really to bring everybody together, multi-services sector, to bring people together, and all the folks that actually participate in this survey to actually come together and work on these recommendations and have an action plan that we hope to have in place for June of 2024. So, yeah, we're good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from committee members with regards to the briefing? Okay, I see Tara. Please go ahead.
Hello, Corey and Martha. This might be for more city staff, but I'm just wondering, are we collecting stats for people living with developmental disabilities through HIFIS and who are homeless?
Through you, Chair. A great question. I know we do collect a lot of information. We do not typically get into like specific health information. I will be quite honest that I do not know for sure if we are getting into that level of detail. I'm happy to get back to you on that question. I will say, maybe if I may, that I do think that, again, and I know data and understanding the needs is obviously a really big priority for all the different sectors, but also bringing those pieces together. So obviously we measure kind of housing, or we know housing needs and kind of number of people on different wait lists and lists. I think ultimately leveling that with healthcare information. And I guess that kind of comes through in both the presentations and the delegation, as well as like, how do we match the supportive needs with the bricks and mortar needs? And that continues to come forward in all the conversations. So it's definitely a priority.
Thanks.
Okay, and are there any additional questions? Please keep in mind the question should be for members from DSO who were presenting for the briefing.
I just want to say thanks, Ruth, for answering that. That was great. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us, guys.
Okay, seeing no additional questions, thank you so much for coming and giving that presentation for the briefing. It's greatly appreciated. Moving onwards in our agenda, we're now at item 8 for business. The Developmental Services Ontario Supportive Housing Review. The report has been attached and the recommendation. This is a report for information purposes only. Mr. Clerk, just as a point of procedure, Is this now the part where people get to ask questions to staff as well? Okay, very good.
Yes.
Thank you very
So,
much.
so through you, Mr. Chair, this since the briefing was attached to this, basically it's now been considered as been introduced. So at this point, it's now totally appropriate for members of the committee to ask staff questions on the report.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Are there any questions from the committee members with regards to this action item? Seeing none. Okay. So then I guess we're moving. Sorry about that. I guess, Mr. Chair, we don't have to vote on this. This is an information report. That's correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Okay, so then we'll be moving on to the standing update report for December 2023. Are there any questions from the committee members for staff with regards to this report? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the staff do need to introduce the report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Clerk. Please, Director Nordegraf, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
You're doing great, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I know we were very happy to have a few delegations today and thought it was important to highlight a few programs. I know we continue to share a lot of information with you, again, I'm quite happy to hear from our partners with a few of their initiatives, just to maybe make some of these things a little bit more tangible and I guess make these issues a little bit more tangible as well. So on the in this report, again, as you're used to us hopefully by now, and for the new members, we do kind of try to have an update every meeting on all the different areas that this committee touches on. So on the homelessness services side, we've given you a bit of an update on the by name list data, and obviously also on the various shelter and overnight drop-in center updates and street out services. Street outreach services. We are seeing a bit of a stabilization of the by name list information. And I do want to remind people that the number is not necessarily everybody is, obviously these are people that we are connected with through the homelessness services that are either accessing shelters or other homelessness services. It's really a range of people that are potentially couch surfing, living in shelter, accessing shelters, day services, and living rough. So it's a full holistic number. Again, lots of great movement and great work happening in all the different emergency housing and transitional housing programs that we've summarized here with a recent expansion of the youth shelter, additional transitional housing coming online through Lionhearts, which you've just heard about as well from one of the delegations. And of course, the Welcoming Streets program that is really starting to see some important outcomes. I know there was a question around funding. So this Welcoming Streets project is a pilot that has been funded until July 2024. Council will be reviewing a budget in January for the whole corporation, and we are including from a staff a recommendation to look at continuation of this pilot. Obviously, we do want to include and continue to focus on outcomes of this program, and also look at how it complements and connects with the other street outreach program or street outreach programs in our community. So that's on the homelessness programming. On the social housing, again, I think it was hopefully helpful to hear from Mary Lynn around kind of the social housing portfolio. We are seeing, and this is very similar again across, and not surprising, across the province, a continued rise of our social housing waitlist applications. And again, similar to what Mary Lynn mentioned, unfortunately, when social housing was, I guess, introduced decades ago, the idea was that this was a temporary program for people to kind of get back on their feet, support, and ultimately move into other housing solutions such as affordable housing. And of course, we know that that is not happening. So we obviously are seeing basically a challenge with people moving through the system in a system that was set up in a way that people needed to move through. So definitely seeing that and trying to wrap our heads around how to address that. What I will say is, again, we are really looking at how can we help people that are currently on the wait list with other resources, programs, and initiatives. So we're not just having them wait for a few years until they actually find housing. A couple of updates that we provided, and I thought it will be helpful for the committee as well to get some data on the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit, or COB, that we have been administering. We received funding from the province to provide housing benefits to members of the public. And we just wanted to share some data in table 6 and 7 in the reports on how these benefits have been or how they've been utilized. And again, I think it's one of many things we obviously need to do as a community, but it's really nice to see that we've been able to provide these to people that are now housed more stable, families, individuals, people coming out of homelessness. So there's definitely some great success stories. And then the last part of this report, as you're used to, is this an overview of the various housing developments that are in the works and their status. We are very excited, hopefully, to present a few new projects in the early new year that we will be able to add to the housing pipeline. I think that's not a short introduction, but I just thought it would be good to walk through it, and my team and I are happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Nordegraff. Are there any questions from committee members with regards to this report? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Clerk, are there any members of the public at the meeting right now attending?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is one member of the public in the public viewing gallery. If members of the public wish to speak, they can either raise their virtual hand in Zoom by clicking a button at the bottom of their screen, which will indicate a little yellow light, or if they are dialing in, they can use, just quickly, I have to pull it up because it's been a little while, *9 to raise a hand, and then *6 to unmute. And I'm not seeing any movement, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on in the agenda then. We are at motions. There are no motions. There are no notices of motion. There is no other business. No correspondence to be noted. The date of the next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 8th at 1 p.m. And now we are at adjournment. Can I have someone move to adjourn, please? I see Councillor Tozo and I see Ian. Okay, all those in favor? Very good. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned at 1:53 p.m. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.